Episode 3.
The mayor's in the house. What up? The mayor's in the house. Better throw them hands up. The mayor's in the house. Hear them talking in the streets. The mayor's in the house. Turning over that new leaf. The mayor's in the house.
Hello and welcome to the Super Genius Podcast, Episode 3. Now today, I want to talk about Christine de Pizan. You say, wait a second, Mr. Oliver. This is a Chapter 12 thing. And I say, yes. And then you say, but we are talking about Chapter 13. Your last two podcasts have been about Machiavelli and Savonarola. And I will say yes again. So why would you want to talk about Christine de Pizan? Because, my friends, Christine Pizan is a lady. And because she's a lady, the AP people really like asking questions about her. So despite the fact she's kind of a very early Renaissance, late Middle Ages kind of lady, we're still going to talk about her, just because I think it's useful to know who she is. So, let's do the basics. She is born in Italy, but people consider her to be a French writer because she moved to France with her dad, because her dad was an astrologer. Not an astronomer, an astrologer. He read the stars. Anyway, he decided, apparently it was in the stars, that he should educate his baby girl. So he did. Gave her a great education, something that was somewhat unusual for the time period for a man to give a woman. More on that later. She ended up getting married at a very young age, 15. This is less common with people of lower class, but because she was in the court, they decided to go ahead and do that. She cranked out some kids over the next 9 years, and then, problem, hubby is dead. So she becomes a single mom with kids. What you going to do? Obviously become a writer. Now you say, wait a second. I thought you said she was a lady person. She is. So if she's a lady person, I thought it was a real sexist time and women couldn't write. You're right. Only a different spelling of it. Because it was uncommon during the time period for most women to write. In the words of one historian, women were best rarely seen and never heard. Ouch. That's mean. You know what? I want to apologize to all the young people out there. European history is sexist. There's no way around it. It's sexist. And it gets better, I guess, in chapter 31 or so, maybe 30, depending on how you look at it. But it's still sexist. So I'm sorry about that. Anyway, some women in the 15th century, lower classes, usually the working classes, would actually help in their husband's job, receive training. Some women even owned their own businesses. But for most women, including the upper class, child rearing is the main job, and their families are the job. So what that means is they're cranking out babies, and they are raising those babies. They're in charge of the education of the children at home. They can kind of push them towards careers. But that was their job. They were dependent on men for most everything. Christine de Pizan, she is not having that. She's like, yo, I got to support my kids. I got to get a job. So she starts writing poetry and whatnot for people in the French court. And they like her. She becomes kind of popular. She essentially becomes the first female professional writer. And her basic argument, as she starts to write longer and longer works, is that women look after men from the cradle to the grave, and they deserve respect. Basically, you got a lady in your life, show her some respect. Real talk. You should. She hated misogyny and sexism. And you say, what's misogyny? Is that a foreign kind of thing to eat? No. Misogyny simply means hatred of women. We're going to encounter this a lot with witches. We're going to encounter it in just European history. Like I said, it's super sexist. Anyway, her most famous work is a book called The City of Ladies. And she makes a book. Okay, go with me here. It's a book full of women in history. But the book represents a city in her mind that she's filling up. So it's a book that's a city that's an allegory. blew your mind. Okay, so she emphasizes women's mythological role. She talks a lot about Athena, the goddess of wisdom. She calls her Minerva. That's the Roman name. That was the style. And it's not uncommon for our Renaissance writers to be hearkening back to the perfect time back in the day. So this is actually very much in style of that. And she also talks about the role of agricultural goddesses in Egypt and whatnot, and how they brought life to a barren world. And you go like, oh, wait a second, they're talking about life-giving. Boom. Yes. And then she says, you know, there are a lot of men who don't want to educate women. You know what they are? Unreasonable. And she said some people are haters. Some people are misogynistic. But why? Why are they misogynistic? Why do they hate women? Well, because they got their own problems controlling themselves. I think we all know what I mean. I'm not going to go into it, because this is a G-rated podcast. But basically, men got their own sick desires, and they project that, and they go like, well, I don't like women because I can't control myself. Okay, weirdo. And maybe they're jealous. Maybe they just like to talk smack. All this sounds super feminist, right? Feminism, the idea of advancing women's rights. But here's the thing. She wanted respect for women, not as equals. She did not want the right to vote. She did not want to be in charge of any place. She simply wanted respect for what women did and brought to society. So, definitely worth knowing. Careful with calling her a feminist. Careful with equating her to 19th century feminism. But I think you can definitely make a case that she is an important writer. If you have any questions or comments about this podcast, feel free to email me at bullardoliver, BULLARDOLIVER, at gmail.com. I'm not going to spell Gmail because it's G in front of mail. And if you can't do that, don't email me. And also, you can Twitter me at Oliver Euro, OLIVEREURO. So, thank you very much. Have a nice day. Peace out.
Shaking trees, yo, picking fruit too. Tell me what the mayor's supposed to do. Buying furniture, catching mad fish. That ain't a fish, that's just an old boot, dude. Really though, gonna go recycle it and fish some more. Gonna buy a hat at the clothing store when I make some more. Bells for show, don't you know that? I got some pears to pick, I got some peaches to plant. If you a pest, then I'm catching you in a net. You dead. At the museum, donating the Stego tail. And Pelly, what's up? Yo, I got some presents to put in the mail. This is the life of the boss, king of the city. Check out these flowers I planted, yo.